Hey y'all, and welcome to Shade and the City. It's your girl Treese, and we're here to get into Beyond the Gates, season 1, episode 20, uh, Tuesday's episode, March 25th. So yeah, y'all, if you haven't already, please do me a favor. Y'all go ahead, hit that like button for me. And if you haven't already and you're liking the recaps, y'all go ahead and subscribe as well. And yeah, let's jump right into it. And yeah, let's get shady. Right, y'all. So we see Anita. She's still reminiscing. When Chelsea stops by to talk to her, she shows her grandmother the purse line that she's been working on, and Anita's impressed, but asks how she plans to manage that and her modeling career, right? And so then, of course, Chelsea breaks the news, and you know, basically Anita's aware that she doesn't want to do both, right? But she hasn't talked to Danny yet, so Anita knows, wants to know when Chelsea became a designer overnight. And she explains to her that, her and Kat had been working on this for months, and she just really is unclear of how she's going to break the news to her mother. So she feels guilty, and Anita tells her that she would be the third generation of Dupree women who blaze their own trail. Okay. And so, she's encouraging her to go for it. And so, she asked to see more of her sketches, but Chelsea is like, look, let me wait on that because I want to catch up with my mom before I lose the nerve to actually tell her. Okay. And then we hop over to the country club where Danny is waiting for Chelsea because they have this meeting about this fashion show, right? And so, but one thing that we notice is the server comes over to her table and he's like, hey, want a drink? Or yeah, basically. And she turns it down at first. And then she's like, yeah, I'll take a little shot of vodka with my orange juice. So we can see that Danny still is craving the drinks. All right. Now we see Pamela call her, and Danny lets her know that Haley knows that she was in her house and came by to let her know, and she said that kind of shook her up. But she found a very muscular shoulder to cry on. Okay. So then she's interrupted by her daddy, Vernon. And he's there to meet Anita for breakfast, but he says that he's happy that he ran into Danny because he wants to talk to her about Bill and Haley. So, of course, Danny is like, oh, what do you know? And so she pretends as if, look, I'm not worried about Bill and Haley. And he lets her know he'll never forgive Bill. And although, she is a pain in the arse. Okay, he didn't say that, but that's basically what he said. He always plans to stand by his daughters and his grandchildren. Okay, and obviously he said that, but then we see later on in the episode, maybe not so much. Okay, Danny tells her father she's running off to a charity, to a meeting with the charity event planners, and so Vernon talks about how proud he is of her for building her own legacy with her daughter. And then after she leaves, Vernon happens to take a sip of that orange juice and realizes that it's spiked. Okay. And then Danny conveniently runs back to the table to finish, or basically come back for her orange juice. All right. Tomas is in Bill's office. We see him deliver some files, and Bill's like, oh, do you want to sit in on this brief? And while Mike is sitting around making inappropriate jokes, we knew Mike was inappropriate when we first met him, but then we get to see just how inappropriate he can be. Okay. And so Bill is scolding him and lets him know, like, this is not, your jokes are not for the workplace, basically. And basically you're offending some of the women at the firm. And so Bill calls out Mike, and Mike responds by bringing up how he was smashing Haley in his office. And I said, well, damn. And so Bill tells him if he brings up Haley again, he'll be hanging from the ledge of the building. So don't try it. And I was like, well, you better, Bill. And look, clearly that's one thing he don't play about, is that Haley. I don't know if Danny got the same treatment, but Jesus. So the group of ladies, the group of attorneys that we saw last episode, that met up with Naomi at Off Jeans, right? They sit her down and tell her, look, we no longer need your services. We apologize for putting you in this situation. We know the relationship with your father isn't the best. And so they said, look, we'll find somebody else to do it. We know it may take a while to find representation, but we don't want to put you in that situation. And of course, Naomi is like, no. And, she's like, I put a lot of thought into it. And she wants to take on the case because she feels like she can take down her father's firm. And so they agree to let Naomi represent them. And she explains how they will dissect each of these ladies and they need to be prepared for it. And she also tells them they have to prove that the firm had knowledge of the harassment. Okay. We see Martin having flashbacks as he's working during the day. And Smitty wants to know, like, what is going on with you? So Martin pretends that he's stuck trying to work on numbers for a child tax bill. Smitty tells him that he doesn't want him to spend more time with his constituents than he does with his kids. He reminds him, like, look, this is not an election year. I don't know why you're doing all this. And Martin feels like he can't stop. And, he got to keep going because we all know that Martin has other political aspirations as well. Smitty mentions that he acts as if he's like, oh, well, you're doing a lot. And I feel like you act like you're running for a higher office, which we all know he is. And then they flash back, of course, to the conversation or Vernon confronting him about his presidential ambitions. So then Anita finally does make it back to the country club to meet Vernon. And she tells him that she was just with Chelsea and she got something to share. Okay. So Vernon tells her that for the first time, he saw Danny. I mean, he saw Danny in a little bit. And she seemed very, not focused on Bill and Haley and what they're doing and was really, honed in on this show with Chelsea. And so Anita's like, I'm about to burst that bubble. About to burst that bubble. So Danny is meeting with the organizers of the charity. They're praising Danny for her antics at the wedding, which Danny is just eating up. And so Chelsea finally arrives, and you can just tell basically that as they're talking about details of the event, she's just mentally checked out. So then we jump back to Smitty and Martin, who Smitty's trying to encourage Martin, continuing, like, I need you to focus more on your kids. You're always in my, it's about being there for the kids, but you don't know what grade somebody got on the test or the name of the boy Samantha is dating. Like, you're out of touch, you're out of the loop. Okay. And so then Martin flips this. And although I like Martin, like the actor, right? I think he's a great actor. However, the character, I'm just like, oh, Martin, I really don't like you. So anyway, he flips it on Smitty and basically tells him that maybe he should hold off on returning to work since he's so concerned about, being there for the kids. And so Smitty's like, no, 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 what you're not going to do. And he's like, nope, I refuse. We had this conversation. He's like, I supported your dreams and now I want to pursue my own. So then he gets a call from his granddad inviting him to breakfast, and Vernon lets him know that. And so, Martin is like, nah, I'm good. And he's like, no, it's not a request. Get your ass over here. So back at Bill's firm, Mike is apologizing, but he continues to make shady comments. He finally leaves, and Bill apologizes to Tomas for Mike's crude behavior. Bill lets it be known that he refuses to let anyone disrespect Haley. And then he finds an old case that he and Naomi used to try over dinner. And he reminisces on losing losing the relationship with his daughters. And he's hopeful he might be able to repair things with Chelsea. But he thinks Naomi is just too far gone. And so, he said he thought the time would heal the wounds, but Naomi isn't interested. Tomas thinks it's quite sad because he's obviously witnessed the closeness at one point that Naomi and Bill had. And so he asked, like, why did she never come to work for you? And Bill doesn't really elaborate, but he says that it just didn't work out. And then conveniently, Haley came into the picture. So he knows it's going to take a lot to get things back on track with his daughters. And as Tomas leaves his office, he replays the conversation of Naomi basically saying that he was dead to her. And so Naomi shares the complaint that she's already written up. We see her back at the Off Jeans, and she's sharing the complaint that she's already drawn up with her victims. And so they grant her permission to go ahead, go serve your daddy, girl. And I said, but no. Interesting. It's interesting. Oh, and I think one thing I did forget to add is Um, what happens is the ladies were curious as to, well, why does Bill have to be involved in the suit? And I guess because it's his firm. So Naomi explains to them that he'll be named as a co-plaintiff in the hostile work environment case, and that Mike will be the only one named in the sexual harassment. Okay. So yeah. And basically she says she plans to win. So after the meeting, Chelsea tries to sit down and talk with her mama. Danny tells Chelsea she knows she wants, you know, her name to be on her own brand. And I think Chelsea assumed that maybe her mother had already heard the news that somebody had told her and slipped up. Um, but unfortunately, what Danny had really had in mind was she done worked out this 3-year modeling contract for Chelsea and basically tells her that, she wants her to sign on a dotted line. And Chelsea lets her know that, look, I can't do it. So I'm just happy that she finally said she couldn't. I would be interested on today's episode, Wednesday, to see if she actually stands on business. Because, Chelsea, she be too busy worried about, oh, my mama, my mama. And I told y'all last episode, last recap, I'm over it. And I don't know how Kat is dealing with this. Okay. So after Anita shares, after Anita and, Vernon beckon Martin to show up. Uh, Before he gets there, Vernon decides to tell Anita about Martin's plans. And so she obviously is like, no, he cannot do that. He cannot ever run for president. They're concerned about the level of vetting and the scrutiny he'd be under. Vernon believes Martin's secret is so explosive they could actually decimate his life. He says that there would be no shielding Smitty or the kids, and they'd basically be collateral damage. Vernon tells her that Martin thinks he can keep his secret from getting out. And he says that, I'm going to be the one to break the news to him that, look, that's just not possible. And so as Martin walks in and they sit him down, and, of course, because obviously he's named after Martin, Martin Luther the King. All right. He basically says he had a dream and he got that dream from them. All right. I said, well, come on, Martin. You're a politician for a reason, right? They tell him they can make an impact on his community without being president. And they bring up, people like Rosa Parks and just Jesse Jackson. Like, you don't have to be in that space to still serve your community. And I love that Anita brought up those examples. So Smitty walks in because Martin. Smitty walks in because Martin had left his phone back at the house when he ran out. And so Smitty was like, I know he can't live without his phone. So he runs to the country club to try to give it to him, only to overhear this conversation about him supposed to, wanting to be running for president, but he ain't said nothing to him. And I said, I knew, how they say it's always the person that's cheating that be the most like jealous and guilty and stuff like that. And that really is the vibe that Martin is giving, because he is doing slimy stuff behind Smitty's back. He's projecting and putting that all and accusing him of doing that. And that's not fair to Smitty. So I just want to say that. So anyway, basically he lets them know he's going to follow his dreams and he don't care what they had to say. And he said that you know what? That's fine. Y'all don't have to support me. He said, I'll let y'all sleep in the Lincoln bedroom regardless, even if you didn't believe in me. Okay. And so then we see Martin fly back home because he's looking for that phone. And then Smitty comes around the corner and lets him know that he overheard his conversation with his grandparents. Mm. And I just hope Smitty stand on. Look, this should be the stand on business episode. I want to see Smitty stand on business just like I want to see Chelsea stand on business. Okay. So then we see Bill. He gets a call. He's in the office still, and he gets a call from Haley asking his permission to buy something. But I think they just put that part in because, of course, as he's on the phone with Haley and telling her how she's the moon and the stars, Naomi walks in. And so he thinks that she's there because he had sent a text trying to reach out to her. And he expresses that, how much he loves his daughters. And he tells her that she's the best part of him. And he wants to hear that she still loves him. That's when Tomas walks in and interrupts and lets them know that we have a problem. And he looks straight at Naomi. So then some random woman walks past him, walks into Bill's office and serves him. And then he's just looking at Naomi, and finally he opens up the paperwork and realizes that it's Naomi that's suing him. And he's like, well, damn, I thought you was here to reconcile. Nope. So yeah, y'all, that was pretty much this episode. I feel like I missed was there no Cat and Tomas this whole episode? It might not have been. I don't think we did. We get any Cat this episode? No, I don't think we did. But luckily, y'all, I don't know if y'all noticed, we have been Derek and Ashley free for 2 episodes now. I am really excited about it. I hope we can keep this going. But anyway, y'all, I appreciate y'all being here. If you have not already, please, please, please make sure you hit that like button. Make sure that you have commented, and make sure that you guys subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when I drop all these recaps and any other things we got going on the channel. Okay. And yeah, y'all, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I will see you later or tomorrow. Depends on how my day goes. But I will see you tomorrow or later, like I said, for episode 21 of Beyond the Gates. Y'all have a good one. Happy hump day. Bye-bye.